Yes, yes. We'll do it that way. I don't know. Can anyone even hear us? That's
Yeah,
it.
they
We're
can hear
messed up.
you. They just can't hear me.
Mackie did say, well, he
Is
kind
it
of
done?
said yes,
Check. Yeah,
yes.
there we
Go on,
go.
then.
There we go. It's a conspiracy. They're trying to silence us. The bastards.
That's the same joke, all three parts, man.
Is it really?
Yeah, so it was because Ben, I think was it Ben that didn't show up? And we're like, oh, they've got him already.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they took him out.
That's right,
It's
man.
okay.
Immediately.
That's right. Where is he now? He is supposed to be here. We have, I've messaged him earlier, so he will be here. Hopefully, anyway. Hopefully. Yes, so thanks for coming to join us, lads. We are doing the conspiracy special today. Everybody out there listening, I'm sure you are aware because that is the title of the video or the download that you've clicked. So yeah, welcome. We're going to talk about some crazy stuff. There's been some crazy shit going on around the world over the last couple of months, and I want to cover some of that while we're here, and we can all talk about it. But we'll wait for Ben to arrive before we get stuck in. And we'll quickly introduce ourselves. There's me, Mackie, from the UK, the host of High on Homegrown. We have Monkey Do, the co-host. Do you want to say hi, Monkey?
Everybody, Monkey down here in the Southeast US. Hope everybody's ready for some conspiracy.
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 And what are you saying, Brian? Congratulations to Brian as well, everybody. He has a new son. So congratulations,
Yes.
bro.
Really good.
Yeah, 11 days old today. Just really appreciative. And these are the kind of shows that I like, man, because, sometimes it gets old kind of talking about the same stuff. And to be able to talk about these kind of subjects without anybody feeling a certain way or I've never had I've talked about these kind of subjects before, and people sometimes take it personally, and people kind of start getting crazy with it. So I just love that we're sitting here talking about goofy shit, enjoying some cannabis, and kind of going down the rabbit hole of what seems to be true. A lot of these conspiracy theories end up being true, which is the creepy part.
After 6 months or 2 years, which is one of the things I want to
50
talk
years.
about. Because about one of the pieces of news that came out over the last couple of days. So, yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. Don't worry, won't forget. Because there's Connor as well. Connor, you want to say hi, mate?
How you doing, lads? Canaman TV in Scotland. Aye, just like Brian was saying, this is fucking quality content. Super fun to chat about, especially when you're ripped as fuck. So looking forward to it.
Sweet. Yeah, and there will be Ben Boland, who is from Stuff They Don't Want You to Know. He should be arriving sometime soon. He's probably loaded up his Zoom and been like, oh, I need to update. Yeah, so because that happens sometimes. But he'll be here. Fingers crossed. Hit that like button if you haven't already. And yeah, make sure you're smoking on something nice if you haven't got something like that. But this is the conspiracy show, so it's not necessary. It's just preferred. Very cool. Yeah, so where do we even begin? Because Ben isn't here yet. We don't want to go in on the conspiracy stuff. What did we talk about in between then and now? Did any of you see the Northern Lights? Because we'll start there, because that's leading into one of the conspiracies I want to talk about. I saw it. It was very fucking cool. Brian, what about you, man? Do you see where you are?
I didn't see it, but my wife was able to take some pictures.
Awesome.
It wasn't as cool as you had hoped, at least in Colorado, but it definitely looked cool in the photo.
Yeah. What about you, Connor? You did we speak before then? I don't know. Did you see
We spoke about this on Sunday. No, but so I got off the train after work about 11:30, 12 at night, and it just looked like fucking like a total idiot. It was just white streaks in the sky. So I went to bed, woke up in the morning, and everybody had this fucking archive of psychedelic fucking photos in the morning, man. I was like, what the fuck? So I seen white streaks in the sky, and that was as far as I got.
Yeah, that's what I saw. But if you look through your camera on your phone with night settings on, you see different colors and stuff like that. It's very cool. But while you were talking there, we had Ben arrive. Are you there,
yes,
Ben?
yes.
Yes, Ben.
Hello.
Yes. How you doing, man?
Yeah, doing well. Thank you all for bearing with me as I learned time zone math and completely missed our previous episode. But it's great to hear from everyone. You guys talking about those Northern Lights?
Yeah. We was gonna lead into our first conspiracy theory, but first I wanted to see if anybody saw it. Did you see some, Ben?
Lots of photographs far enough south here in the United States that it was an excuse to hang out on a rooftop for the entirety of the evening. I'm also partially colorblind, so even if there were northern light there were evidence of northern lights, it would have been a slight pinkish thing. I
Mhm.
totally would have missed it. So I
Oh,
just
lame.
sat there. Yeah, I just sat there and stared at the sky and thought, well, if something does happen, it's good that I know about it immediately.
Right. But you're just spending some good times with good people then,
Yes, sir. Yeah,
which is
yeah.
always a good thing.
Did you guys catch it? I think you're much further north.
Yeah, I got to see some. It was pretty cool, man. I went out for 2 days, but I only saw it on the first day. Connor said he's seen some as well. Brian had seen some. Monkey saw some, and he's way far south.
But what I saw was more like, okay, if somebody didn't tell me this was Northern Lights, I'd say the sky is slightly pink tonight.
Right
Yeah.
on.
Sounds familiar, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Also, what's fascinating too is things like sunspots or coronal mass ejections. They could potentially have pose problems for like satellite networks, electric grids, and that is part of why I decided to stay up the entirety of that evening because I was thinking, all right,
Oh,
man.
cool, right? Yeah, you were that far. Was you like stoned or something? Just a little bit paranoid. They're gonna fry all the circuits. We're all gonna die. 3 days with no electricity. We're all dead.
Like
Wait, I
Y2K
can't
all
be the
over.
only one. Right.
Yeah.
Y2K, yeah.
Yeah, the Carrington event that was like like 130 years ago or something. I'm not sure the date where there was a coronal mass ejection and it wiped out a load of radio towers or something. I'm not too clued up on it, but I think it's called the Carrington event. Very cool, but it's not likely to happen nowadays because the technology is better, right? Yeah,
It'd be
maybe
quite
not.
funny if you like woke up in the morning after Northern Lights and your phone had like 110% battery. What the fuck?
Yeah. Then, well, this is the biggest one we've seen for 160 years, apparently. But there is some conspiracy as well that this wasn't naturally occurring. This occurred because of HARP. You all seen this? You all seen the conspiracy
Yeah.
theory that it was HARP that were firing things at the atmosphere and it got reflected back to Earth, and that's why it was so extra this time round compared to what it usually is. Has anybody seen any of that? Did anybody seen this conspiracy theory?
Yeah, I've seen
No.
some of that stuff, like, definitely. Two things pop to mind. One, I can understand why people would kind of go immediately there because technology is at a place where, weather manipulation, all these different things. But the other thing, just as we're talking about this, kind of comes to mind is the fact that take that away and it's an actual natural phenomena. We're removing the majesty of it just because of the fact that it's like, fuck, they're attacking or something. You know what I mean? It's like we can miss, you know what I mean? We can miss these really shit hot natural phenomena as a consequence of just being like hyper insecure about the state of technology.
Mhm.
I don't know. It is scary too, because
I don't know.
if
It doesn't
technology
make any
goes, we're all dead. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense though, Mackie, blaming it on HARP because that project can't put that much energy out. So
How do you
I'll
know?
always,
Are you
I
working
always
for
go
HARP? Do you know?
no, it's it's the first law of thermodynamics. Energy can only be transferred from one form to the next, not created or destroyed.
Mhm.
So this little tiny satellite that we built can no way put out that much energy. You just can't do it.
Is HARP a satellite? It's not a satellite, is it?
No, it's it's a program most commonly associated with what I will say is an objectively weird compound out at University of Alaska Fairbanks, and
Wow.
they their deal is basically to mess around and find out what happens when you project certain types of energy or radio waves into the ionosphere. So I guess it's possible. First off, yeah, it's super sketchy, but I guess it is possible that it could have some sort of small scale effect on the atmosphere of Earth. But to your point, Monkey, it is such a small amount of energy in
Yes.
comparison to the stuff that's already occurring. I think people just like right now, people just like this idea of something significant and crazy happening in their lifetime, and people look to the heavens as always. So there was a solar eclipse earlier. I don't know if we saw that, right?
Mhm.
And then there was this um, activity from the sun. And what's fascinating about it is, to your point, Connor, this stuff always happened. It was always happening way before the time of humans. So perhaps human civilization is being a little self-important. I look, HARP is creepy. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program is creepy. I live in the United States, which means technically I paid for a part of it, and I don't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? I have no idea what they're doing. The math is over my head, and part of it clearly is involved in weaponization of something, but I don't think they have the power to affect CME in that way.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it was just a extra powerful solar storm, and we're going for there's some magnetic flipping of the what's the correct
The
word?
polar
Magnetic
shift.
poles.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Polar shift. I was thinking polar. That doesn't sound correct, but it is. Yeah.
They're
But that happens every, I don't even know how many years, but that could be coming up soon as well, which could have an effect on it. But like you say, maybe that's just one of those things that we hope happen within our lifetimes, for something exciting to happen. Because that's like thousands of years apart when that happens as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it was HARP. Does anybody think it was HARP? Anybody out there in chat think it was HARP? Let us know. But yeah, I think it was just normal stuff, and very cool as well. Very cool.
It's cool till it's not. Isn't that the rule?
Yeah.
Other things people are waiting on would be, here in the United States, there would be things like the statistical inevitability of certain catastrophic events. The San Andreas fault is just sort of waiting, and Yellowstone may have a what do they call it? A super geyser situation.
Yeah, super volcano. Yeah.
Super volcano. Yes, thank you. But again, that's the problem of time windows, right? When geologists say something is on the way, they mean that sometime in the next several centuries or thousand such of years, right? And I don't know. I guess I am speaking on behalf of the California Tourist Board, as well as the good folks at the Yellowstone National Park, and saying, go see them both just in case, just before they blow up, be able to say you were there.
Yeah. Don't be like that guy on Mount St. Helens. Did you see that guy? It's like the last photograph he took as the mountain was exploding.
Yeah.
Savage. But
Did he-
nature's scary, huh?
Did he get away? He's fine, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have
sure.
the video.
Yeah. Well, the cameraman never dies, so he's probably okay. Yeah, man. But I like just like to look into the conspiracy theories of things. And when I saw, I think it was on X, where people were going on, this is HARP. HARP did this. Like, yeah, funny. Because it isn't, but, it's funny to see people are still creative in that way. But what
HARP
else was
is creepy, though.
Oh,
HARP is
yeah, for
creepy,
sure.
just to be clear.
I just don't think it's powerful enough. But who fucking knows, man? Who knows what they can and can't do without us
That's
knowing?
exactly how I feel about it. Like the information that we know, we could probably times it by like 300 or 400%, and then that's when you begin into the classified documents of fucking things that are hidden. So I think it's well within the reach of fucking whatever they have to do these kind of things. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know. I don't know if it's just nihilistic to always think that it's like everything that's kind of cool was testing for something malevolent in the future.
What do you think, Brian? You're sitting there in the background all quiet. Do you think HARP did the recent Northern Lights?
No, and I appreciate Ben coming on. I've been watching his podcast a little bit when I have some time and stuff. So these are fun things to talk about. I like to sit back and learn. I would say that at this day and age, man, with the ability for us to be able to come together and stuff, this kind of stuff actually bothers me in the fact that nobody fact checks anything and just runs with it. I even saw this dude that had a shirt on the other day that said birds aren't real.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, yeah. So all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, like how far are we going off the edge here? I thought we were all working together to kind of like get through the sludge and figure out what's true, not to just say whatever we think, and then 10% of the internet runs with it, and then that's the part that scares me. I think
Mhm.
HARP is extremely creepy. I think you should take the time. There's definitely a few documentaries you can watch on it and see for yourself. But I think the phenomenon of a Northern Lights is the beauty of the universe and the fact that we are sitting here in space, fucking floating in infinite space, and nobody's talking about that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It's pretty magical, the place that we're at, and a lot of us are so entwined into technology that we're kind of forgetting about that aspect of life. And we were talking about enjoying mushrooms and stuff, and I think that's where hopefully society would be a little bit more, so that they can see that birds are real. And I've seen them build nests when I was tripping, and it's a wonderful thing to see. Like, the work ethic that goes into building a nest was unbelievable. I sat there with a buddy of mine for probably 3-4 hours just watching him build a little home for himself.
Sweet. Yeah, man. How do you know they weren't just like little drones, man? They're just doing it to make you think that they're real. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's like, when,
It's like...
yeah, when does that stop though?
Drones
It's
with
like,
feathers. Ooh.
let's push the envelope, but let's all like kind of fact check you a little bit, so it's not just like, hey, everybody just say whatever they think, and all of a sudden, because I said it, now all of a sudden it's real. And
Well,
when
that's
people
how
do
it
use the
started, right?
heart,
Yeah, but when people, because there was just one guy who was recorded and put up on YouTube back in the early days talking about birds being fake and how birds are just government drones, and when they land on wires, they're in fact charging. And and like you say, it just, some people heard it on the internet and they ran with it, and some people think that it's fucking real, and it's so obvious that it isn't. Are
It's-
all birds real? Maybe not. Maybe there is a few fake ones out there. But all of them being fake, I don't know about that, you know?
It's interesting that though, because that's the thing that pops to mind. If you go back like 100 years or so, when like journalism was at like its infancy, it was all about diluting the public's opinion in order to kind of win their mind essentially. Now it's like that's one method they can do it. The method that seems to be running now is like hyper disillusion, where it's you flood them with so much information you can't make an informed decision. And I'm not meaning like on a local like level. I'm talking about like a multinational corporation level, disinformation project, that kind of shit.
Mhm.
And that's what this sounds like. That's what like a lot of these. That's why it's so fun to fucking talk about it, because what we're doing with this conspiracy stuff is essentially sieving through the shit. You know what I mean? That's what it's kind of like. But that's what it sounds like. Just when Brian was talking about that about fact checking the shit, it's like no wonder they're so disillusioned. It's like nobody fact checks anything. It's like, oh, quality, take that and run with it.
Because we just like instantly assume that because it's coming from a certain news source that it has some reliability to it. Because back in our day, I wouldn't say that they were more reliable, but we were not as awake to how fucking corrupt they all are. You know what I mean? And I think things are just changing now, slowly. Oh, sorry, I got distracted reading chat there. Chickens are real. Dinosaurs, yeah. Man,
Yeah,
it's-
agreed with all points. I will also add to this that in, I think, 2023, summer 2023, maybe spring, a group of scientists got together and they took taxidermy birds, right? Birds that died, right? And they put them as the skin over drones. So that is the that is the most that is the closest I've seen to the allegation that birds aren't real. And I guess in the longer form of things, most birds that have lived, or most bird species, are probably extinct at this point. So those birds were real, but they're
Mhm.
gone. Um, I don't know, man. A lot of people have problems with birds. I get it. They're just fancier dinosaurs, right?
Yeah.
But I've been watching a lot of stuff. I've been reading a lot about Corvid intelligence, and I'm still kind of freaked out by parrots. I'm just gonna be honest. I think, like, I get it. They deserve to exist. They have evolved that way for some sort of reason due to environmental pressure. They're probably better than me at karaoke, especially the ones that can speak languages, even if they don't know what they're saying. I get it. I see why people would not want birds to be real. They do have weird superpowers.
Yeah, man, and then big ones, they're savage. Have you seen
Oh,
like it's an eagle before? I think it was an eagle. It might have been a bald eagle, but it was a huge bird, and it just comes swooping down and tried to grab somebody's kid, and it lifted the kid off the ground, but I don't know, like 5, 6 feet, and then dropped it, so the kid landed on the floor. But you know, how close was that kid to being taken away, just like a piece of fucking food, and got eaten by an eagle in a bird's nest somewhere?
What happened to
Savage.
what happened to the kid with the talons? You know, did the talons get the kid when that happened?
I assume he would have at least been scratched a little, you
Oh,
know.
geez,
lacerated, surely.
I would think, yeah, pierced would be a better way to put it. You know.
So
Yeah.
that kid's gonna be terrified of birds for the rest of his life, you know. I'm
That
I'm
kid
a
might-
little bit more scared of birds because of seeing that video. Never mind being the kid in it, you know.
Yeah.
What if that kid's an ornithologist now? You know what I mean? Because we have a long-standing, I guess you could call it folklore, about a type of cryptid in the Americas called the thunderbird, which, according to myth and story, was large enough to pick up not just a like a human child, but an adult
Damn.
human. Yeah. Have you guys heard about the thunder? I feel Brian Monkey, I feel like you guys in particular have probably heard about this
Mm, not
I have
really.
not heard of that. No.
No, this is
Oh.
just from your timeline, by the sound of it.
one. Perhaps that's true. Yeah, the Thunderbird was supposed to be like the condor or the bald eagle times 10.
Okay.
And it's part of I think some indigenous community, Native American myths. I think it goes up to Canada as well, but I haven't ever seen a case of it actually existing. Perhaps early human society ran into these kaiju-sized gargantuan birds, and perhaps they hunted them to extinction or they died out or something. But I do think, and this may be naive, but you guys, I am increasingly convinced that some legends and folklore about run-ins with monsters or what have you, I'm increasingly convinced it's part of an oral tradition regarding early human interactions with creatures who no longer exist. I think it's possible.
Man, there's that theory, and I'm not sure where I heard it. I might have even heard it on your show. You might know what I'm talking about. Well, how people are creeped out by things that are similar to human but not actually human. Like when you look at android robots, you know, it just freaks people out. People are freaked out by mummies, dummies. You know, like mannequins. People are freaked out by that kind of stuff. And are we naturally freaked out by something that's similar to human but not human? Because there was something thousands of years ago in you know, prehistorical times. Was there something that looked like human that preyed upon humans and made us naturally afraid of that, like we're naturally afraid of spiders and snakes, the dark, you know, predators and things like that? So yeah, the uncanny valley, I think Gellert might be touching it, because yeah, it's like the uncanny valley. Well, that's what the not the fear, that's the wrong word, but do you know what I mean? You know, Ben, have you heard of that before?
Yes, absolutely. And the big question is why? Why do we, as a civilization or a species, seemed primed to react certain ways to certain sensory inputs, right? So,
Mhm.
talking about, you know, like the great reptilian conspiracy, part of the reason that idea is so successful is because there appears to be some sort of hardwired, primal, intuitive caution around snakes, right?
Mhm.
You see a snake in the wild. I don't know about you guys, but one of my first reactions is to think, look at that. No arms, no legs, just one weird crawling limb. How'd you get here, buddy? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on with your life? But yeah, it does appear that there are, and I'll defer to the group here. From my understanding, the reason that people across community and culture tend to react to certain animals in certain ways, it appears to imply that there is an evolutionary factor in this. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Snakes, for instance, are snakes are seen as dangerous They're seen as the holders of forbidden knowledge in multiple cultures, like the Naga in the Indian subcontinent, the Judeo-Christian or the Abrahamic, snake in the garden, all that stuff. And I think it might go back to some early human tribe. Someone saw a snake for the first time, it bit them, and they said, "Ow, today I learned something." I don't know, man.
No,
Maybe I'm
I think it comes from the people who were afraid of snakes didn't get bit and weren't killed by snakes
Oh.
before they had offspring. So the people who had the fear and stayed away from them would have offspring and slowly pass like little pieces of that phobia down to their offspring, and it just developed over time, you know. But those people who were not afraid of snakes would go to the snake and get bitten, maybe killed because it was venomous, and before they had offspring, so that didn't get passed down. So that little gene, that phobia, that behavior that we have, lived longer because they were the people who were having more offspring with that phobia. You know, I hope that makes
Sort
sense.
of like the Darwin Awards, right?
Yeah, yeah. Evolution is a fascinating topic, man. I love it. It goes deep. But anyway, yeah, interesting. There's some other conspiracies that I wanted to talk about as well, and it kind of touches on this, some humanoid thing. And I don't know, this might be a little bit controversial, I don't know, but I saw a picture from China. It was a video from China, again on X, and they had made like half monkey, half human hybrids, allegedly. And it's like, I just think that they have already done this. This has already taken place. We just don't get told about this thing. And they have CRISPR now, so they're probably doing all sorts of gene editing shit that they're not even telling us about in the background, making super soldiers and things like that. Do you think that the Chinese army, for one example, but maybe even the US Army as well, or all the major armies in the world, do you think they are breeding super soldiers and fucking around with genetics? What do you think, Connor? What do you think about this kind of thing, man? You think I'm crazy?
No, I think it's funny as fuck. I love hearing that, man. Super soldiers.
You know what I'm saying?
I love it, man. I fucking love it. No, so the thing that popped to mind was I read this article the other day, and it was essentially a guy died after 3 months of getting a pig kidney. It was like a pig transplant. What they've done was that they
Right.
deactivated specific. I know nothing about any of this. I'm going to butcher all the language, but they
As we do.
deactivated
As we do.
100% exact. Just totally as a wee fucking censor it there first before I get started. But they deactivated specific enzymes or cells in the pig kidney, which have a tendency to be detrimental to humans in some form. You know, they cause disease or they'll attack it in some form. So they've done all these little. And when I'm reading this, I'm like, it sounded the way the person was writing the article was like they just clicked a switch. You know, and they'll do that by obviously like deactivating or activating specific fucking functions within each particular cell, and that's as deep as my fucking knowledge goes. The reason I'm saying that is that's what they're telling us on the mainstream. You know, that's like this is what we're doing, and it was at university, and it was NYU or something like that potentially, and it was like this is official. Like we're willing to talk about this, and this is the stage of our technology. So that's on the surface, which is acceptable. So that means way fucking deep down in the background, they must have some form of. I mean, we're almost touching on the celebrity clone thing. You know what I mean? Really, that's what this is. But I mean, they did it in the film The Sixth Day. Was it The Sixth Day? Arnold Schwarzenegger, fucking 20 odd years.
Yeah.
And now, like, I'm a firm believer that fucking a lot of these films, if not fucking the vast majority of them, are like preconditioning. You know, it's like where are they getting these crazy stories? Because they've got the blueprint, dickhead, and this is them fucking showing you. You know, it's what was it? The thing? It's the normalization, all that shit. So yeah, that's I wouldn't be surprised that there's some crazy ultra fucking science fiction thing going on to do with genetics. You know, it would be. I'd be surprised if they weren't doing something like that. Quite honestly.
Yeah. I mean, there's a video I've seen of it was Putin and Xi Jinping. I think Putin had just got off a plane, and then the Russian bodyguards and the Chinese bodyguards just look at each other and nod, to be like, "Yeah, how you doing?" You know, they've probably met before. But the Chinese guy, the bodyguard, he was fucking huge, man. It's like that guy was probably made in a fucking lab or something, you know, just specifically to be Xi Jinping's fucking bodyguard, man. Guy was massive. He looked like, remember the 80s movies? Remember that guy who used to fight with Jean-Claude Van Damme in the movies back in the day? You know that guy? He had like half of his eye missing or something. Yeah, looked just like him. It was crazy, man. Gosh, terrifying. I'd have to find the video for you because you all think I'm crazy now. But shit, you know, they could be just editing people's genes to make them bigger and stronger and faster, you know? What do you think, Brian?
Well, this comes back to, and I would need Ben to help me on this point, I guess, because I don't know enough about it. Hopefully, he knows a little bit about it. But um, supposedly, with like the Anunnaki and human beings, when we've been here, our DNA has already been kind of fused. And so I wouldn't necessarily say it was with a monkey, but there was a lot of people, I guess, conspiracy side of viewpoints that believe that our DNA has already kind of been manipulated with. And I was wondering if Ben knew about that and if he could enlighten us all about that kind of viewpoint.
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with
okay,
that, Ben?
Yeah, Brian, I've heard this. This is an older theory, and I think it is I think it's endlessly fascinating in a couple of ways. So to respond first to the idea of Chinese eugenics, really, right? The breeding of super soldiers through biological means. Have you guys heard about the conspiracy that Yao Ming, the basketball player, was the result of a state-sponsored program to breed better basketball players?
No,
No.
but it wouldn't surprise me.
I think probably what happened is that Yao Ming's parents, who were both basketball players and Chinese nationals, I think people just hang out with folks who have the same interest. And two of those basketball players had a kid who, surprise, turned out to be a basketball player. But to what degree did the government seek to influence that partnership?
Mm-hmm.
That remains unclear. The idea of the Nephilim makes me think of, and Brian, you're absolutely spot on with the concept. It makes me think of how the more we learn about DNA, the more questions we arrive at about humans in general, right? I think we all remember when DNA testing became democratized or monetized and widespread, and then a lot of people learned stuff they did not know about their own genetic structure. You found people who had, surprise, like a percentage of Neanderthal heritage. We found people who had a percentage of Denisovan heritage. You had what we learned was that the story of human beings appears to be far more complicated than we had originally assumed as a civilization. We still don't know where all of the DNA in current human beings comes from. There are a couple of early human mixtapes that are still missing out there. And perhaps that is part of the root of the Nephilim beliefs.
That's cool as fuck. I'm gonna be going down the YouTube rabbit hole with that one later. It's just fascinating, isn't it? Because there's so much of our history missing. Like Graham Hancock would say, we're like a species with amnesia. There's just blocks of history that we just don't know what the fuck is going on. And to find out where that missing, the source of that DNA, them sections of our genes, where they come from, that would be interesting to find. Maybe one day we'll know.
It's kind of like an alignment with that Springmeyer guy's book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. If this was the case, and hypothetically speaking, it was like, this is fact, this is the case of it, that humans come from this alien race, and we're a hybrid of it, that kind of thing, then it would be within the interest of the fucking elites of society to maintain the purest form of that. Obviously speaking in fun fucking context here, so it's something to think about, because it's like, I've read maybe a couple of chapters of his book, but yeah, maybe that's something to fucking consider in the context of Nephilim and stuff like that.
Yeah, interesting shit, man. And there's something cool about that word Nephilim. What is that? It's a type of demon or something. What is the Nephilim? Is that the thing with the 6 eyes?
No, these are more like fallen angels.
Right. So what am I thinking of? There's something which like comes in Revelation. I can't remember what the name of the thing was. Somebody in chat's going to be able to tell us what it is.
But the Nephilim, if you're new to that that verbiage, you should go down the rabbit hole in that. It's even in the Bible. It starts in Genesis 6:6, and it talks about the fact that for whatever reason, the ones that were cast out of heaven came down to earth and wanted to fornicate with the women of earth, and were successful in that, and actually traded their skill sets. Like apparently, like each different Nephilim would have, or main one, I guess, would have had a skill set, and would trade that to be able to fornicate and impregnate the women of the earth. And when you tell hardcore Southern Baptists, Southern Methodist people that this is in the Bible, they look at you like you are the blasphemous. And I want more people to kind of maybe start to bring down the walls a little bit of what you probably ingrained in you when you were a little kid, and start to just question about some of this stuff about where do we truly come from. If you are hardcore on one side of a viewpoint, maybe just reread some of this stuff that was maybe just kind of taught to you in Sunday school, and rethink some of these things. Because from what I understand in 41 years of trying to understand theology as best I can, human beings are pretty special things. And the fact that we worry about all the trivial stuff that we do, I think we're missing the viewpoint of what was put on here probably eons ago of whatever this viewpoint is. And I know Ben probably knows more about with the Nephilim. And from what I understand, Ben, is the Nephilim and the Anunnaki, are we kind of saying the same thing there?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of similar linguistically to the idea of mazes and puzzles. So, like, all mazes are puzzles, not all puzzles are mazes. Anunnaki and Nephilim get used, I would say, pretty interchangeably. But the idea, right? I can't remember how the verse goes, but something like there were giants in those days, and they sought the daughters of men. Um, anyway, the source material has been translated so many times, but it is something that is in the books, in all the translations. There is some depiction of a force, like you were saying, Brian, kind of, well, the best way to put it is literally these humanoid creatures were thought to be the forms or the avatars of fallen angels that sided with the Lightbringer, or Lucifer, whatever we want to call him. And this led to great technological innovation at a sacrifice. The sacrifice being to create children. So I think, correct me on this, I may be off base, but I think the idea was that it was something like the Anunnaki, these fallen travelers or creators or Promethean figures, and their offspring with the humans was something like the Nephilim. I mean, you could trace all the interpretations. Like, there's the idea that Goliath was a giant because of some distant relationship to those fallen creatures. But also, maybe David was just really short. We got a lot to figure out about that.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff though. I like the whole Anunnaki theory with the saying some alien race mixed with our mixed with our DNA, so we could mine gold because they needed gold to put into the atmosphere of their planet or something like that. That's essentially the story summed up, isn't it? Interesting.
Well, what I love about Brian's point, to sew this up, is something we can't miss. For at some inexplicable, or at least not yet understood, point in the history of what we call humanity, there was this transformation, seemingly overnight in the large scale of time, in which hunter gatherers acquired language, acquired agriculture, acquired domestication. And so naturally, for thousands and thousands of years, people have looked back on that general moment and thought, what the heck happened? How can we explain this? Because it's a lot of good ideas all at once.
What do you think happened? What's your personal theory?
Oh, I defer to the group. I'm still on the fence. I technically wasn't there.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Nobody can really know what happened. I just find it fascinating, man. I think there's more to humanity than what we know. I think because we've got like 5,000 years of prehistory, and then like 10,000 years possibly we've had some kind of civilizations with agriculture and shit like that. But is there opportunities for humans to have been an advanced species before then? And then there was the cataclysm. You know, Graham Hancock again. He said with the Younger Dryas impacts, 12,800 years ago, that could have wiped out a pretty intelligent civilization, and we've gone back to hunter gatherer after that. I don't know. I think that's likely, but I don't know. It's so fascinating, and there's so many different aspects you can look at it from. I just think it's cool as fuck, man. You know, will we ever get these answers? Am I just babbling because I'm high?
Well, I
Probably.
mean,
Yeah.
invent the time travel machine and we'll go back and we'll get the answers. But it hasn't
Yeah.
happened yet because they haven't come back and visited. So it's not happened.
I don't
cool,
know, man. There's a guy outside the liquor store in my neighborhood. I think he might
Uh-oh.
be a time traveler.
Is he always there no matter when you go?
Yeah, he's always there. He's got a little card in his hat or whatever the Stephen King joke is.
He's
But,
NPC, isn't he? That's what he is. Reconciliation.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
There it is.
NPC. Yeah, listen to just a quick random subject change there. Listen to your recent episode. Listen to it yesterday. I did, Ben. About the lost tombs. You know, it was a repeat.
yeah.
You put it back out again. Fucking, I like that series, man. Because it was a two-parter, and it's going into some interesting stuff, man, about lost tombs and things like that. I liked it. And if anybody hasn't checked out stuff they don't want you to know yet, definitely check it out. It's a proper professional podcast. It's not like ours. You know, they actually nailed the professionalism. We only attempt it. You know.
Oh, jeez. No way.
Yeah,
way.
listen to our show live sometime, Ben. You'll see. You see.
Yeah, thanks for the Lost Tombs. That series, I think, ties into this larger discussion about the hidden history of humanity. Because one thing we can say about the human species is it is amazing at losing stuff. Every time you think, where are my keys? Where is my wallet? Where is my, my phone, I guess, for a lot of people, then it's important to remember that you are doing in a small version of what the entire human species does. This species has lost has lost cities for sure. Troy was thought to be a city of myth until well into the 1800s when it was rediscovered. There are cities beneath the waves due to tectonic shifts. The jungle eats cities, right? And so I find it not implausible to say, hey, by the way, some of the most important people in history, we have no idea where they're buried, right?
That's true.
And so with that, is it crazy to imagine a world wherein humans lost an entire previous civilization? I don't think it's crazy.
Absolutely, man.
Sorry, I yield my time. Let me step off this soapbox.
We've had a long history, man. I think there's big gaps in it. I mean, it would be nice to know how they got there, you know? Crazy shit. Like
It's interesting that. Have you seen that episode of Futurama where you've got like it's Professor Farnsworth, is that his name? And he's like fucking battling with the other professor. I can't remember his name. And they're talking about how well, if humans if humans were from apes or from that kind of fucking process, then where's this like new development? Where's this fucking fossil or something like that? And they just kept going over and over. So they kept falling into each single fucking form of human development, Homo sapien and every other fucking chain in that link. And that was the whole basis of them going back and forward. It was like, well, we've just not found it yet. And I think that's what's kind of cool because at the same time,
it's
humans
the
are fucking
God of the
fascinating
gaps
things,
argument.
man.
It's called, isn't it? When
Is
you
that what it is,
find when you find a fossil in the fossil record, there's always going to be, if you find one fossil, it creates two gaps. So there's always going to be, what about this gap? And then you find the fossil there, it creates two more gaps. Now there's three gaps, and it's just whenever they find a new fossil in the fossil record, it creates more gaps. That's just what it does. That's what the fossil record is. Sorry, going off on a tangent.
Not at all, man. It's fucking pertinent.
Yeah, I enjoyed many years ago. I used to study that shit a lot, man. Evolution and just I don't know, the origins of humanity and religion and things like that. I'm interested in that kind of thing. It's a good topic. The ultimate control weapon. That's what religion is. Well, people find solace in it. So what can you say?
Thing is, it's actually almost, if you think about the simulation theory as well, if you're to add on whatever percentage increase and then times it by a specific time span, then you'll eventually get to a point where we're able to develop what we're engaged in now. And these like Nephilim or religious, archetypal, symbological fucking stories and all that kind of stuff. These could be the fucking user's manual. You know what I mean? They could just be fucking what's left over, man. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Man, there's some interesting stuff that came out this week as well. Apparently, all along, after all this time, the truth is coming out. They're saying that the US government did fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan laboratory for coronavirus. Did you see that? Is everybody seeing this news?
What? No way.
Yeah.
I'm being sarcastic.
Right.
Accusation, yeah. I mean,
What source is that coming from?
I'm not sure of the source. I've seen it on a few different news networks now, but I'm always skeptical of things until it's been through the ringer and see what people fucking say about it. Because we suspected it all along, but you need to see proper evidence, not just somebody saying things. You need to see proper evidence to prove it, because that's a big claim. But it does look like that they did fund it.
Well, first question would be to go, as Brian said, to find the source, also to see any kind of documented paper trail. The U.S. does fund all sorts of field trips and adventures and research, we could call it, across the world and indeed into the near bounds of outer space. However, given that the current government of China and the current iteration of the United States are at best frenemies, we have to ask ourselves seriously about how that sort of research cooperation or agreement would work. Because right now, as we've seen, maybe you guys have seen it across the Atlantic as well, there's growing tension geopolitically, and all wars are about resources. So it seems that if this gain of function research was directly funded by the US on the Chinese mainland, the PRC, the government of China, would immediately come out and say, hey, look, here it is. We documented this. Here is like the line item budget, because they wouldn't, their current calculus would lead them to expose that as a way of saving face in the international sphere. So I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying there are a lot of steps in that order of operations we would need to understand to be able to like give that credence. I mean, maybe, but I just don't see it, because it would be such a win for the Chinese government to say, hey, look at these folks.
Yeah.
And they haven't.
Yeah, good point, man. It's interesting because they would come out and be like, look what they did. Look, it was them all along. Look. But at the same time, would they? Because the USA is like the biggest customer to the Chinese, and to damage the relationship between the two. Everything was down to money, right?
No question they would do it, though. No. Just to shame the international community, to shame the US, they definitely would do it.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how it evolves.
Yeah. How tough is it? How tough is it to get EU citizenship? Just checking. Unrelated.
You don't want to come here. Don't want to come here, bro.
Yeah. Asking for a friend, right?
Europe's fucked too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell your friend, don't. It's not worth it. But I don't know, man. It's easy to. The grass is always greener, as they say, isn't it? So I'll be.
Oh, you guys have grass? Nice.
Yeah, they're allowed to have grass in Europe.
Yeah, it's good here in Europe. It is for sure. I don't know. I think everywhere's going through a little bit of trouble right now. The world seems to be
Mm,
changing.
mhm.
I don't know. Scary times, man. We're looking at more and more conflict all the time. You know, all these elections taking place across the world. It's like there's 40 different countries having elections this year. So it's a big change of power everywhere. A lot of instability. So scary times, man. Scary times. Interesting times though. It just convinces me even further that we're in a simulation. Because what are the odds of living through the most interesting time in history so far? You know, what
You
are the
know what's
odds?
getting me about that idea,
Hmm.
simulation theory, like a lot of us, I keep thinking, okay, I've squared this philosophically, and then I learn another thing that puts me back into that rabbit hole. And one of the recent things is, have you guys heard about this, the dead internet theory?
Yeah, I have.
Well, what do
No.
you all think? Or like, how would you phrase it, and what does everybody think about it? How would you
Oh,
describe it?
I've no idea what it is.
Yeah,
The
I'd
dead
say.
internet. Yeah, sorry, Brian.
I was hoping you would define it. I hadn't heard of that, and it
Oh,
sounds interesting
it's
already.
the majority of the comments and the content being made online is made by bots, and majority of people making content is like the real people is like 10%, and everything else is just bots. So that's pretty much it, right, Ben? I got that right. It summed it up.
Yeah, the home run nailed it. The idea being that the internet itself has escalated to the point where humans are an increasingly vestigial minority of the interactions. And
Hmm.
though I hate the phrase, the content that we encounter, it's fascinating because I think it speaks to this idea of evolution. Is there a world in which is a creepy thing? Is there a world in which humanity dies out due to some catastrophic event like a gamma ray from somewhere in the deep ink, or, you know, the sun has a bad day and farts weird and civilization is over, both of which are very possible things,
Hmm.
and the internet somehow continues? Would there be a digital world in which it's just a bunch of bots doing the uncanny valley thing we described earlier, speaking back and forth to each other, like two mirrors just
Until the
facing
lights
one
go out.
another until the lights go out? Yes, sir. Um, it's a thing that makes us think, and got an interesting piece of correspondence from a physicist uh, who was working on a couple interesting projects, and the physicist told us in response to this idea of dead internet theory, they said, well, it's really a question of degree, and now you have to wonder, what if this is the simulation theory? What if, us talking or you believing in the dead internet theory is just the product of a earlier created algorithm? What if we are the bots in a civilization, uh, or a civilization's iteration of a thing that came before? Interesting
Fuck,
stuff.
bro, that's some deep shit. Damn. I like that. I like that. That's wow. That's kind of blown my mind right there.
I don't know. What do you guys think? I didn't really have a good response,
What if
because
we are the bots? Damn.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's it. And this is what's fun about it. We don't know. But it's fun to just get high and talk about that crazy shit. But
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is.
No, I'll
yeah.
believe the dead internet theory as far as certain platforms like X. I think half the stuff up there is just bot generated, and it's just creating a conversation that they're steering it along. But I don't know about the whole internet. But I do believe that there's a good bit of bot stuff going on up there.
Mhm.
If you read through some of it, some of the comments and stuff, especially comment sections, social media, things like that, you can kind of sort of pick up some of the bot characteristics every now and again on it. So I know it exists, but I'm not going to say that we're in a minority. I still think I'm going to believe, as Brian would always say, Monkey's going to always think that the conspiracy is a little overplayed. And that's what I would think on the dead internet theory, is that maybe it's not quite as dead as some people think it's dead.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd agree
interesting
with
one.
that.
Yeah, interesting. And it's going to be even more dead when you seen this new version of ChatGPT, the 4.0, I think it's called, or the 4.0. Have you seen it, Ben?
Yes, yeah, I'm familiar. I played no role in the creation, but I
No blame.
yeah. Gonna Matrix dodge that one. Doing Matrix jokes. But I would say that is a fundamental shift. If we could first off acknowledge the um philosophical fraudulence of calling an intelligence artificial
Mm-hmm.
based simply upon its origin point. If it's intelligent, it's intelligent. Humans
Mm-hmm.
still don't know how to measure that
Yeah.
at all. It's hilarious. But we see the profit motive switch. Like when cannabis first became decriminalized in Colorado, in a weird way, it united an increasingly divided electorate, and all the politicians, all the corrupt like voting hall bosses, they saw the money move, and that's what's happening with large language models, with things
Mm-hmm.
like Chat GPT, is the idea that um, it could sharpen up the margins of profit for these various private companies, these corporations, and so on. However, I will maintain that I am not persuaded that at least Western society is ready for it. I can't speak on authority with other societies, but look at the way people handled television. That absolutely, pardon me for cursing, but that absolutely rocked our shit. We were
Mm-hmm.
not ready for television as a species. And
Mhm.
the idea of generative stuff, man, it's gonna be that Sorcerer's Apprentice scene from Fantasia all over again.
Mm.
People don't understand what they're building, and you're gonna see a lot of corporations advertising this kind of linguistic automation as a money saver, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Automation and improvement. We just don't know how the results will go. I will say Chat GPT-4 is naturally an improvement upon Chat GPT-3, but both have a long way to go still.
Oh yeah, it's just fascinating that we've got this far with it. It's such a cool piece of technology, but very much a double-edged sword at the same time. The more it helps
Didn't
us, the more. You saying, Brian?
I just wanted to ask, didn't Elon Musk give them like seed money and then he's backed out of that project because he feels
Mm-hmm.
like they have changed the whole vision of what they originally stated they were going to try to achieve?
Yeah, he did give
Yes, I
money to them
believe
at the
that's
start.
correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not
I,
sure
I
why he
So
mean,
backed
doesn't that
out.
sound like a supervillain movie starting to like play out in real time here, where all of a sudden it's like the cat's out of the bag? Which when Elon Musk was saying that like 10 years ago, um, on the Joe, or maybe not that long ago, but he was on Joe Rogan talking about how scary it is once AI is kind of out in the open and unleashed in a way.
Yeah.
And it makes me
yeah.
wonder how far away we are from that. And the fact that he walked away from it, that part creeps me out too.
But he hasn't fully walked away because he's got Grok now, isn't he? And that's the AI that's on Twitter. So there is still some language model that he's working with.
No, I mean the actual Chat GPT
The
crew.
Open AI, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
them
they seem
guys.
to have gone super villain with it.
Yeah, and it's one of these things, all this technology that we have. Like we were saying, we have all this forgotten technology and stuff, but that's how it happens. People just get too comfortable. Not many people know how to grow plants, how to catch, kill, and skin food animals for food if the shit hits the fan, as they call it. We've lost so much technology already. If there was a big catastrophe now, a lot of people wouldn't be able to survive in the wild. Because technology has been too good for us. Maybe that happened in the past and just wiped out a shitload of people, and some kind of ancient civilization is gone because of it, and we all turn back to hunter gatherers. You know.
It will certainly be, it'll be interesting because it seems like there'll be more of like a fragmentation. You know, there'll be some people that the more technology moves forward, the more you have people like Neuralink and stuff like that. You'll have people that will be adapting to it and willingly signing up for it.
Yeah.
And then the other end of the spectrum, you'll have the polar opposite where people will be like kind of going back to nature, you know, the roots, what feels more, you know, natural to them in a very real sense.
But you all know about the Great Filter, you know. Is that something that you think is possible? That every advanced civilization at some point gets to a point where they wipe themselves out, and that's why we don't see aliens, or maybe we do, but you know, that's why we got no alien races visit us as far as we know. We think about that shit. What do you think, Connor? You heard of this shit before?
No, you elaborate on that. What is that?
So, I'm a little high. I've forgotten what I was saying.
Sorry, just what that we eventually get to a point where we kill ourselves, essentially.
Yeah, the
So what I
Great
think-
Filter. That's right. Because we don't have any alien civilizations coming to visit us, and we can't see any evidence of them being out there.
Right.
So at some point, if there is intelligent species out there, do they get to a point where they just wipe themselves out, and
Well,
no species has reached a point where they're properly spacefaring, going to different planets and solar systems? You know?
So it's interesting. One of the things is that always pops to mind when we say alien is this assumed anthropomorphic, is that the right way? Anthropomorphic alien. That's what we're looking at. Whereas it's like, fuck man, take enough DMT and you're not looking at something like that. You know what I mean? And yet you're looking at something that's very seemingly intelligent. You know, so it's like take fucking AI far enough and it would seem like an alien. So and I think that's one of the things every time we're talking about like the AI and the development of it and the role or the position that humans will have as it's developing. The thing that always pops to mind is like you got the Google car driving around, you know, mapping everywhere. So you've got this very real digital fucking landscape of the world, and then we're talking about language models. So we'll have a very real is that metaphysical language? We'll have that as a model, you know, and then because of all the photos and all the fucking selfies, those are now models. Doesn't take very long for us to not be here and yet have like this digital residue as a human species, you know, this digital memory that's left. That's all that pops to mind every time I'm thinking about this or we're chatting about this kind of thing, that the AI development will lead us, if we're able to play a role as it develops or control it. I think that's the main thing. You know, control is central when it comes to development of these things. And I think my mind always goes to the fact that we'll lose control. Humans lose control with fucking their car. They're not going to keep a hold of something like this, you know. So it's, I don't know. It's just that's what it pops to mind, that there's only a specific time span before it gets to a point where humans are no longer present. And as you're mentioning before, we've eradicated ourselves, but we're left as a digital memory and this fucking autonomous mechanism that we constructed, you know.
That would be crazy. Damn. Imagine that for a sci-fi movie. Like they discover a planet that is just automated itself and all the humans are dead. You know? That'd be a cool episode of Stargate, that would. Damn. I love
You
Stargate.
guys see that Japan and South Korea, like, talk about losing a civilization. A lot of think tanks believe that entire culture will be lost because they're not reproducing quickly enough.
Oh, right.
So they don't, you know, it's not even like you got to take yourself out, other than now, from what I understand, I've never been to Japan, but men are more interested into like sexual robots and that kind of thing than an actual relationship with a woman.
They're
And
easier
that-
to turn on.
So many jokes there. So many jokes.
And
Sorry.
South Korea is starting to be the same way. I think it's funny in a way, and it's also really sad, because what if that culture, which obviously has a great heritage, will be lost just because they didn't fornicate enough and have large enough families?
Yeah, it seems to be happening all over the world. There's a few countries now where people are not having so many kids. And it's in a lot of scientists talking about population collapse as well. Just seeing something so drastic when, like, 10 years ago, we're overpopulated. There's a huge problem, climate change, and now it's like, oh, people aren't having enough kids. Because you've terrified everybody. You know, people can't afford it.
Like,
you know,
I always have this image in my mind of some guy in a cabin in the fucking woods or on top of a fucking hill or something like that, right? And he just lives his whole life there, and we spend all this time, these chaotic dialogues about what's going to happen and the destruction of humanity and all these really like cataclysmic fucking conversations, and 70 years go by and that guy's no fucking, he's just been doing his thing. He's like, nothing's happened. It's cool. You know, that's what it feels like sometimes. It's like, we just need to fucking, I don't know, smoke a bigger joint.
Turn off the news.
Yeah, the news. That's what it's like, man. It's
Mhm.
fucking, it's a virus.
Yeah,
Sometimes it is.
man. Yeah, and you just can't trust the shit you see anywhere nowadays. I mean, we have all of this information, and it's about to get worse. This is the crazy thing, right? Up until now, we can all agree that you just can't trust a lot of the shit that you see and read on the internet because it's probably fake or it's got some kind of agenda behind it. It's just bullshit everywhere. And now with this rise in AI, I mean, in 5 years' time, even 10 years' time, there's not going to be any way you're going to be able to tell if a video that has been made is real or fake. I mean, that's probably the case now. What was the name of that? Sora, was it? OpenAI made a video creating tool where you can just give it a prompt and it will give you a video. And this is the shit they're releasing to the public, man. What are they keeping behind the closed doors they don't want us to know about? You know, they can make anything seem real now. Anything. It's crazy shit, man. It's so far ahead.
Hey, did you know Tyler Perry, the film, and I think he's an actor at some point or something. But anyway, he was going to put up like close to $1 billion on a large facility to shoot films. And when he found out about that Sora thing, it looks like he's going to back out of that project. So whatever that Sora program can achieve, and obviously Tyler Perry and his people obviously know way more than we do. It seems like that money that was being spent, he's just going to lose instead of just going after and building out this huge complex. So there's something to that Sora thing.
Times are changing, man. I think the next 10 years are going to be very interesting. And again, this is one of the reasons why I believe in this being a simulation. It's too unlikely. If we're like 500, say 1,000 years in the future, and technology advanced to the stage where we can have these simulated realities that are indistinguishable from the actual reality, and you can go back and see anything. I mean, you can go back and see the pyramids and all that, and you would want to go back to like, oh, I want to see what it was like when the internet was first made and when AI started to be developed. I want to see that. And you'd go and live for, I don't know, maybe it's just a couple of hours, you know. You don't know if the memories that you have are your actual memories or if they're just implanted by the system, you know. It gets deep, man. It gets deep. But it just seems like this is a simulation. I'm going to say this is a simulation. What do you all think? Monkey, what do you think? Simulation, yay or nay?
Nay, man, I can't go with the simulation thing. I mean, that's at times I can sit down there and convince myself that it could be, but I guess if I have to look at it from my perspective, it's just too complicated to be a simulation.
Right. What are you saying, Connor? Yay or nay? This is a simulation.
Nay, yet. This feels like so. The thing that popped to mind as well is genetic code and just the word code. You know, that in itself, DNA code, all that kind of, you know, mapping the genome, all that kind of stuff. If I was to like, what I think is if simulation's real, we are instigating it. You know, add 100 years, 200 years on top of it, and this is like ground zero of fucking the beginning of the simulation. You know, we're in the process of manufacturing the ability to do it. The Sims is that. You know, on a really basic level, you switch on the Sims, it's like when you switch the plug, would be the equivalency of the Big Bang, really. You know, the electronic fucking spark that comes from the plug, switching on the TV, the computer, all that shit. You know, the Sims is like a really basic version of the simulation. So if I were to take a guess, it'd be like this is the beginning, and we're fucking watching it. You know.
All right. What do you think, Ben? Yay or nay? This a simulation?
I'm all right. So I'm going to answer the question by saying I believe the answer of such exist is relatively immaterial. And this is perhaps the problem of philosophy. You know, someone gets hit with a car, right? Was that part of the programming? Did destiny exist? Did the code come into conflict? It doesn't. That kind of question is going to be really rude to ask the person when they're in the ambulance. And and people are people are existing nonetheless, in terms of the nature of their provenance, in terms of um, the greater questions. I do find that question a fascinating thought experiment, but I see no learning from that answer that would improve to a significant degree uh, the quality of life for this universe, or for this earth, simulation or not. And then what's the difference between a simulation? You know,
Hmm.
it's similar to the idea of the ship of thesis, right? I mean, that's a stretch, but I don't know. I'm gonna say nay, because even if yay is the correct answer, I do not at this point understand the significance of that answer and what, if any, consequences or results would impart from knowing that result.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. I was just going to say, would it not be the same as asking, is there a God? Like, if we're in a simulation, is that not the same question as, is God real?
I don't know about that one.
It's
That's
similar, but I don't think it's the same question. But I know what you're saying.
But wait a minute. I'll go so far as to say I don't believe we're in a simulation of anyone else's making. But if you think about it as life as we know it, life as we're experiencing it today on Earth, limited senses, limited inputs, we live in a simulation that we create of our own in our own mind based upon the limited inputs that we have from our universe around us. If we had all the input that was coming into us right now, all the electromagnetic crap and the temperature, everything, this universe would look completely different. But we build our own simulation in our mind to allow us to cope with everybody else. So we're all living in our own simulation in a weird sort of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Well, at some point, we would have had to go through Darwinian selection, like we have, like the history we know has told us. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like the simulation is trying to feed us any bullshit or anything, but at some point, it becomes a simulation.
Now, I think if and when you can take something like Neuralink and actually where we can plug into someone else's mind and see their simulation,
Yeah,
our world changes instantaneously.
and being John Malkovich. Is that like that
pretty
movie?
much like that. Yeah.
Brian? What do you think? Do you think we're in a simulation? Am I the only one? Am I just crazy? Shit.
I would say in my early 20s, I would have believed that we were in a simulation, yes. And studying more about theology, studying about where Mecca sits today is on the same place that King Solomon's temple sat in biblical times, and how important land is on earth for whatever reason, and how it does seem like there's been cultures and civilizations that have been around time and time again, where some of these civilizations so advanced that it's digital, the same way we're kind of our species is moving into, where if something catastrophic happened, most of our digital everything would be erased. And so I got really into the theology aspect of it. Having 4 children and being around that, and especially being around a child that was just born, there is an energy there that I cannot describe to you, unless obviously, some of us here are parents, but there is something there, especially when they're born, if you're lucky enough to be in the room when they're born, that leads me to believe that the soul and that kind of thing is real. There's an impact to karma and the way that you carry your life, and you are given free will. It seems, my personal viewpoint is that way too. And so there are people that are pieces of shit, and there are people that are fantastic human beings. And that energy is put onto this planet. And for whatever reason, that's kind of where human beings are at this point. Simulation to me is a little too strong of a word, but I do believe that somehow this was designed. Like there was, we have seasons, we have, just watching what my wife had gone through from having a child in her stomach to now passing that child through, and having them now just come into the world. That also to me seems like it was a designed feature for a human being.
Damn, so many deep answers there, lads. Jesus, you've been smoking cannabis. Jesus. But yeah, it's just something that can't be answered, isn't it? So I just find it fascinating to think about it. I don't know. That maybe that's my Roman Empire. You know, you know that whole thing.
That was the glory that was your Rome.
Yeah, that's you know the thing that you think about on occasions. It'd be simulation theory. So you see random upgrades and shit with the Mandela effect. But anyway, what other conspiracies can we talk about today? Because there's so much shit going on out there. There's more stuff coming on about 9/11. Some guy coming out saying that dodgy shit happened with Building 7. It just always keeps repeating itself in the news, isn't it?
Did you see the? It's not relating to 9/11. Did you see the fucking painting of what's his name?
Yeah, King Charles. Yeah.
Aye, did you see that satanic fucking thing? Did you see that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know
no.
because I saw that it's got like some satanic thing where you put one picture next to the other and all of this. But I haven't gone and done it myself with the original picture. That's what you need to do because people can just make
that's a
it
good
look
point.
like fucking whatever you want it to look. It's pareidolia, you know. You can see whatever you want after somebody's pointed out, like that Green Needle video. You know, when there's like audio pareidolia, they're saying something you're not quite sure what it is, but they have the words on the screen, and then you hear what's been read. It's just we get used to seeing patterns, man.
I mean, even taking away the fucking flipping the image, when you first initially see it,
Yeah, it's like
it's kind of fucking like, what the fuck is that?
what's all that red? You know, what? I don't know. I wouldn't be happy with it if it was me. But I don't know.
It's like, mate, nah, this is pish. Start again.
Yeah, it's like what the fuck.
Yes, exactly.
You know, what if somebody's colorblind to red? They can't see the picture, you fucking dickheads. I'd be
I mean, the reason
screwed.
why
I
that's-
thought it was a good drawing.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
okay,
it's-
okay.
I did have to have someone tell me that it was red. But
Right.
Oh yeah.
I acknowledge the artistry involved. I thought it was a very strange decision for that to be
Yeah.
a monarchy co-signed painting.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Why would you
like
let that
butterfly.
happen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a butterfly over his right shoulder as well. Butterflies are esoteric in the sense of like what they're supposed to represent and stuff like that. I think they're not. It's like I don't know. I think the reason why I'm even mentioning it in the first place is the royal family is obviously always in the context of conspiracy and stuff like that. You know, satanic fucking energy, ghouls, all that shit. So to see
Lizard
that painting was kind
people,
of like,
yeah.
aye, it's like what the fuck. You know, that painting was just disturbing. You're not going to hang that in the living room and feel warm. You're not going to like, oh, that feel nice and this is a nice comfy Sunday.
And
You
you
look
know,
at that thing
somebody's
like that.
painted it, so it's been done on purpose. It's not that color accidentally. It doesn't look like that accident. There's the reason why they've done that. Why it's blood red, and they're trying to send a fucking message. And
They
if
had a
if
bunch
it
of
was,
blood red paint and they needed to use it up, you know? That's
yeah,
it. I don't know. Could be
Fucking
that.
hell.
Could be as stupid as that, though.
I love that they got a deal on the paint and they were
Yeah.
like budget cuts.
Okay, we're going to do it.
Straight down the Liddle, shit hot.
That's so funny to think the royal family can't afford fancy paint.
That part of it, yeah.
Sitting there in the gold throne.
Use the red, it's cheap.
You got a discount on this, right? Yeah.
you know, basic price is $2 million. If you want any other colors, you've got to add some more money to that. You know, damn.
We'll take the
We've
red,
we've
it's
only
okay.
got red.
I love seeing it as like a good news, bad news meeting. Someone comes in and they're like, "Hey, good news. We managed to get some paint."
You know, the bad news is, yeah, weird. That I don't know, man. Is it part of the? Is there something going on in the background right now between all of these elite folk? Things are breaking down. I see. To change the subject completely, I see that P Diddy is in trouble again. He was in trouble because he's like the Epstein of the rap music business now. I'm sure you've all seen that. But this week he's in trouble because he beat up his girlfriend in a hotel or something.
Yeah, you seen the video?
Yeah, and it's like, are they trying to like deflect it to like look at this instead? Don't look at the whole rap music thing. Look what he did to his girlfriend in the hotel. It's like, God damn, man. Let's focus on what he did with the rap music shit first, and then we can deal with that. It seems like they deflect like that. I say they because you know them, the people above. What
Maybe
do
it
we
was
mean
just
by
maybe
they?
it's just-
I don't know.
Maybe it was just a very human response. He's fucking crumbling psychologically because of all this pressure of these fucking paedophile fucking allegations and shit. And he's crumbling, and he ended up taking it out on his wife. You know, that could be what's going on, and then you know that.
To
kind
be
of stuff.
clear, this is a video that was from years ago. I think it was
Right.
Oh, is it
2016.
really? Okay.
And it wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't his wife, it was a girlfriend. And they're
It
no
was the
longer
woman that
together.
he already paid $30 million to, so this shit wouldn't come out.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, no refunds on that one, did he? If you're
Yeah, no
listening.
takesy backsies.
Right.
Yeah, but it's fucked up, man. Do you think they're just trying to deflect, make us focus on something else?
Maybe that's
Unclear.
their version of fuck a pig, you know? We got this
Yeah,
video.
yeah. Mhm. Oh yeah, maybe
Nah.
that's what it is. Yeah.
I
Now we're
think
gonna
the
bring it back.
elite are coming after him.
Yeah,
the
it
super
seems that way,
elite.
doesn't it? Like they've let him go. They're coming for him now.
Maybe
No more
he's not playing
protection.
ball. Who knows? Don't know
Yeah,
what's
You have to
no
wa-
more. Whoever was protecting him, that person is backed off because it seems like
Mhm.
he's open to fair game now.
Yeah, you have to wonder. You have to wonder what went on behind the scenes with that because the I think the legal authorities in California, where the event occurred, where the video was filmed, they decided not to prosecute that one. Um, and I was talking about this with some folks because you raise a very interesting point. Was there some sort of protection? Was there some sort of rubric of rule breaking? And they said you can order the death of Tupac Shakur, but you did something else, and so now you're in trouble. It's just it's strange. It's disturbing. It's also an open secret in this country, at least, that the rules of justice apply very differently to someone depending on their socioeconomic status. Like one of the only very moneyed people who got in trouble in recent years was Bernie Madoff. And it's not because he was better or worse than other white collar criminals. It's because he took money from the wealthy and they couldn't let that stand. So maybe there is some invisible line that Sean Combs crossed, such that the stuff they had on him is coming to light. But it's just strange. It's disturbing. I wonder if he was protected up to a certain point. And as you were saying, Brian, I wonder what, if anything, had changed in recent years.
Thing is, just you saying that, Ben, I'm pretty certain that he tried to sue Diageo. And that would maybe be a big fucking thing. Diageo, let's be honest, predominantly fucking white elitists at the very top of that fucking tree. You know, so and he's like, after like, it was pretty much everything, all this kind of stuff started like happening and coming out in the news the moment that he kept pursuing them. You know, and I don't remember why he was fucking suing them in the first place, but it was something like that, that it was that he attacked them financially, and a very short period of time after it, all these fucking allegations came out, you know, so relevant to what you're saying, you know.
The same,
Do
but
you
it could
guys
be
think-
CIA. Sorry, Ben. What are you saying?
Oh, no. That's an excellent question. In terms of, we do know that the music industry and parts of the alphabet are likely associating with each other and have been for some time. But as far as a producer or, a musical VIP like Diddy, as far as that person interacting directly with the intelligence community, I don't know. I I don't have the ability or the expertise to outline what that relationship might be. It's weird. You know what I mean? It's weird to live in a country where I can't get away with a late fee at the library, but then we've got these people up to all sorts of unclean kind of things. I generally attempt to practice critical thinking and skepticism. And in that spirit, you see someone who apparently has quite a track record of bad behavior, to understate it. And this person appears not to be in any trouble. It's kind of, it happens all the time with
we
American
see,
celebrities.
being a cannabis podcast, which we are usually, we see quite often people will go to prison for a non-violent crime where there is no victim. They just grew some plants for their own personal use. You know, people will get sent to prison if they're caught doing that. And you see the shit the elite are doing, like just blatant money laundering, you know, and fucking embezzlement, just all sorts of dodgy shit going on. They're just stealing taxpayer money, overcharging things. You know, the corruption runs deep, man. And to see that nothing happens to those guys, but you'll get sent to prison for growing a couple of harmless fucking plants, is just absolutely ridiculous, man.
I don't think in human society it's ever been different. Like, has it ever been different? Go back to the feudalist shit and all that kind of stuff. You know, you had monarchs that are getting away with fucking everything, and it's like it's a socio-economic thing. You know, if you're able to pay your way, then you get away with it. Really.
Yeah, I don't think it has ever changed, has it? It might be better now than it's ever been. Maybe that's ever because there's more rich people now. Maybe, I don't know.
If I would say if the price or if the consequence of a crime is a fee, then ultimately the only real crime is being poor. And that's something that civilization has yet to deal with to that point.
That's actually pretty deep.
Yeah. Finding is not the right way to go about things. It just seems like there's a big elite. I mean, we've all heard of the Illuminati, you know, and I don't know, are they real? When I was young, I thought they were, and now I'm like, nah, they wouldn't be able to keep it hidden, keep it secret for so long. But
it would be cool, though, would it not? It would be kind of cool.
At least we know somebody was in charge, you know?
Right. In a very, like, ethics aside, in a very arguably evil way, what would we do if let's say you're hanging out somewhere and you got invited to like some fancy party or some momentous event, come hang out with us at the at the night of the solar eclipse or lunar eclipse. Night of the solar eclipse makes no sense. But but you're hanging out there and then someone comes up and they say something to you and they're like, "Hey, you know, Brian, Connor, Monkey, Mackie, come with me to the other room." And then they tell you the Illuminati are real. We're tapping you in. We're giving you $1 billion and all you have to do is in about 10 years from now, support us and do us a favor later. I think a lot of people would say yes. I think people would say yes for like, I know people, I'm on good authority. I know people who would say yes for like $1,500. They'd be like, cool.
Okay.
A really fucking strong coffee. I'm in.
You know? Savage. But yeah, no, I mean, $1 billion is a lot of money, and you know that kind of deal's going on a lot, man. There's so much corruption in politics. These people don't give a shit. They'll do anything to get to the top and maintain power.
Thing is, it's interesting actually. If you look at, so I mean, I've got two sons, and so you get to see children, right, and their wee idiosyncrasies and all these different things. But one of the things that's kind of uniform between, I mean, it's different age groups. So there's about 8 years between both my boys, and what I've noticed is, and you see it, it's like a micro representation of adult life. So, and you see it, you see the little collection, the little harboring of groups. Like if you had like a dozen or so kids playing football, there'll be maybe fucking a couple of those kids at the very top, like the popular ones, and they'll just chat with each other and they'll have wee bits of information, and then then you'll have the kids below them that are kind of like, oh, I wish it was with these guys, they're super cool, and we'll listen to whatever they say, and then you've got the kids below them. There's a natural hierarchy that forms, and it seems to be, I'm using football as a terrible example, but when it comes to kids alone, you've got a natural hierarchy that forms about secret keeping, in a sense, some form of like importance preservation thing, so like fast forward that through to fucking adult life, it doesn't go away, it seems to be fundamentally natural to have that kind of hierarchy. I mean, fuck, if you've worked in a workplace that has lots and lots of staff, so where I work, it's fucking like there's 20 people on staff every day and it rotates. So on the actual books, there's like 50 or 60 people. So you get to see this natural integration socially, and there is exactly that. It just forms naturally into this hierarchy. I know they have a structure in the building, management, and you follow all the way down. But that itself is like an explicit example of something that seems to be relatively non-physical. It's all between conversations and psychological fucking interaction, all these different things. So the reason I'm saying that is that with that in mind, it makes it very likely that if you were to take that dynamic and apply it to a societal international scale, why wouldn't that be the case? That there was a small fucking fraction of society that had an overwhelming number piece information compared to the rest of us.
Well,
That would
like
just,
Skull and
it would seem
Bones,
natural.
man. Yeah,
Skull and Bones,
What,
exactly,
what's
that kind
that?
of
Is that
thing,
from
exactly.
Yale? Is it those guys? That's pretty much the same thing. They start off in school and then go through their lives together, and who knows what the fuck they're doing when they have that kind of when they have those kind of resources. You know, that amount of money, the amount of context they have. It's just you can't even tell what these people are capable of.
Did you know it's 15 that are tapped and only 15
What you
each
mean?
and every year?
But for
So-
Skull and Bones.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
elite among elite that if you're picked among that.
Yeah.
So I grew up poor, and then when I lived in Savannah, I was fortunate enough to work at this place called the Ford Plantation. It was Henry Ford's personal home, and they turned it into
Wow.
like a fancy clubhouse, right?
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm on the other side of extremely wealthy people. And what I heard over the years is that very, very elite, wealthy, like 1% of 1% type individuals do seem to pay attention to their genetics. Like I've heard like a mother talking about how she didn't want her daughter to marry this guy because of, you know, who he was basically. And so that part always kind of made me wonder about when you're talking these elite stuff and keeping things secret. I think they used to call it like the mystery schools. Like as far as I understand, like Leonardo da Vinci and people at his caliber would go to these mystery schools and start to understand kind of the world and the ways of the universe and stuff. And they would keep that quiet. And it seems like for whatever reason, the genetics aspect for some high end type families seem to also matter more than how much the person would make. Is like where is the pedigree from? You know, if the boy is marrying into the family, where is his family from? If you know, and I at least growing up in the South, man, and being poor, nobody nobody talked about that kind of stuff. And so it's very interesting to be among all these weddings over the years and just hear people talk about these things at the weddings about, oh, this is a merger of a conglomerate with a conglomerate and this kind of stuff where it's very eye-opening about what really matters to the wealthy. And I think preserving wealth and preserving their heritage, and when you're saying that, that's more back to like I was about to say Bone Thugs and Harmony. the Skull and Bones, you know, when you're talking 15, that's what I mean of like the super, super, super elite. Not even just wealthy people, but people of stature and power that have been around for generations. The Rockefellers, the Rothschild types, but they were more like Southern families, not Northern Eastern families.
So just to follow on that point, Brian, so I stay about 10 miles away from St Andrews in Scotland, and it is fucking dripping in that level of elitism, and you see it. So I used to do like a garden, essentially, still do, and so I'd be out there and we'd be landscaping the gardens and the grounds. And what you noticed is because you sometimes they'd be fortunate enough to, oh, and you come, you have a cup of tea, or this kind of shit, and the way they talk, it was like all family integration stuff. So we own this business and that family does that business and blah blah, and they'd be talking to each other about that. And they'd very rarely ever speak to us. They'd speak to the gaffer. They'd speak to the guy that was in charge of us. Really, they would never even acknowledge you, you know. And that's that kind of thing you see all the time. You know, see fucking like aristocratic fucking family names on benches locally, shit like that, you know. Whereas if you just drove fucking literally 10 miles down the road, that wee plaque would be fucking ripped off the bench. You know what I mean? It would be nobody that like fuck this, and they would take it and melt it down. You know what I mean? And it's just that small bit because it's in this small fucking area, you know, this elitist fucking place. So yeah, it's exactly that, man. It's this fucking like interbreeding of fucking elitist families shit.
Yeah, man. It's crazy how the other half live, isn't it? I wonder what it's like to be like stupidly rich. Maybe that's going to be one of the simulations.
Technically, it's less than half. Technically, it's less than half of people.
You know what else I saw being a bartender at that place was that a lot of those guys behind each other's backs fuck each other's wives, and then it becomes a huge riff.
Yeah.
So when you have a lot of money, I think people just forget about morals and ethics. Not everyone, but it did seem like a lot of them. And they would always do this like shh and stuff, and then the dude would be in the table like the next morning eating breakfast. And I mean, of course, I'm not going to say anything. Who the fuck am I? But the balls on some of those people with the amount of money that they have and their children and all that, just to do those things that blatantly, I also thought was kind of eye-opening.
It made me feel
Mhm.
grateful that I was born in fucking dirt poverty. You know, it was just
Yeah,
fucking-
man.
yeah.
Looking back, hell
Yes,
yeah.
man.
Otherwise, you're just gonna be a total piece of shit your whole life and like talking down to everybody.
Exactly, exactly, and that's what I mean. Like these people had no character. They had no like to say streetwise is an understatement. You know, they had like malicious corporate wise. They had that shit going. But the idea of like them having substance of character, there's a really liberating thing when you have nothing. You know, when you have fuck all. I have that memory. Like we used to do like annual. Maki, you may be familiar with this. It was like when you get to primary 7 in school, and the school will take you away for 3 days, and it was like a couple £100 to take the kids away to like some camp or some shit, and you go and climb trees and that. It was just me and one other guy of a class of 34 that didn't go because we couldn't afford it. So we'd be in the class, and then they would come back, and all the kids have got fucking stories and pictures and shit, and I'm just sitting there like, I was in the house, man, with fuck all day, barely eating, and that's what I mean. So you then move forward in life, and you begin to appreciate things that, I don't know, man, you see more of life, and life seems more beautiful when you've had fuck all, and then you're in amongst these people, you're like, fucking it, you know, I wouldn't choose to be these fucking people, you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, you've got to go through shit to build character. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like you got to beat your plant up to make it a little bit, you know, make the stem sturdier sometimes.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah, man.
fucking, it's stress training, let's be honest, it's high stress training, that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, strange. There's definitely lots of different tiers to society, and that's where the conspiracies all come from, man. This top tier of, is there a big cabal just running the world and controlling how the machine runs? I think it's most likely. It has to be the case. This like there's so many companies now just owned by them 3 companies: BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, right? They own like just about everything. So it's pretty easy for them to put whatever agenda they want across now. I mean,
Well, not only do they almost own everything, but they're very pro like social scores, like how China sees things. Where, you know, if we're over here talking shit about Biden, and then we go to the grocery store and we're trying to buy something, all of a sudden we can't buy it anymore because the chip got turned off. And however it's able to do that in real time is also extremely creepy of
yeah,
I guess Chinese technology.
seems like that is a possibility. It's a scary thing, man. Things are just getting more and more draconian. We're heading towards 1984, more than ever before, I think. It's madness, right? Do you think they'll
That
shut the
sounds
internet
very
off?
North Korean to me, don't you
Yeah.
think? Like
Yeah,
on
it
a
does.
grand scale. Do what Grand Poobah says, or you're not going to be able to eat and feed your family. So eat grass or rice.
Yeah.
You know.
It's almost like a hybrid of that, of 1984 and Brave New World. Because the Brave New World has you don't need to, it's not fighting. It's not, you need to fight against the state because you're too sedated. And that's what we have. We have this overly sedated dopamine culture through fucking gaming and every other form of stimulation. You know, it's just this a sedated culture. And at the same time, we're also, there's the civil unrest, which you see on the streets and all these different things. It's like a fucking hybrid of the two.
So is that why they're giving us weed, to try to sedate us even further now?
That's interesting. I know, like, fuck knows, man. I really don't know.
Oxycontin. That's what they're trying to
okay.
give you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
It's the fluoride in the water, man.
That's it.
Yeah, that's always a strange conspiracy theory.
Man, I every Thursday I go to this lady and she does this stuff called Graston to my fingers because they're all fucked up, right? And she told me that her husband just pulled his back, and so they take him to the local hospital here. They look at him and they say that he has kidney stones, and they were willing and ready to write him a prescription for OxyContin. So they go and they get a second opinion, and this doctor tells them that no, he's just got severe back spasms. He doesn't have kidney stones, and thank God, because he probably would have become addicted to OxyContin based on a misdiagnosis.
Damn.
Man, that's, you know, that shit is synthetic heroin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
fuckery, man.
that's peddling some hardcore shit, dude. Just to be like, oh, what's wrong? Kidney stones? Okay. I mean, that sucks and everything, but still, I don't know if I'd go jump into the heroin world just based off that.
No.
Damn.
That's what it's like, man. It's like, you got kidney stones. Well, here's a fucking lifelong addiction. You know what I mean?
You won't worry about the stones anymore. You worry about your pills.
Yeah. What about your house? You're going to lose it soon.
And you read the side effects of taking these pills, and one of them's kidney stones. You're gonna fucking get them anyway. Shit, man. Yeah, it just does seem as if we are just pawns in a game, right? I'm sure it isn't that way. Imagine if it just isn't that way and it just looks like that. We are just living this like a reasonably free life. We can just do what we please within reason, of course. And we're just delusional. Maybe that's what it is. Are we delusional? Should put a poll up. You know? God damn.
From like a conspiracy life kind of thing, I would say that in this day and age right now, we're probably the luckiest, and this is probably the easiest for the masses to survive.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
Even though all the bullshit in the world, I'm not trying to like, dismiss any of that stuff, but from a like hunter gatherer, very what is the word? It's like a group. Most of humanity was very gruesome to one another, and I mean, to this day, it's still there. But at the same time, the masses still live pretty comfortably. And in the first world, it's really almost ridiculous at this point.
Damn.
I mean, how much shit do you guys have in your house? Like, be honest, right? If I look around here, I got so much electric shit that it's unbelievable. You know?
Yeah, I know you're right about that, because I mean, I used to do long time backpacking trips with my daughter, and we would leave maybe for 2-3 weeks at a time. And when you get so used to not having any of that stuff and you come home to it, your first reaction is, why the hell do I have all this stuff? I don't need any of it. But the longer you spend the time around it, the more you get comfortable with having it.
That's right, man. Creature comforts, isn't it? These just little things that just make life easier for us. And now there's so many of them, you know.
Yeah, and everybody else has got one, so I want one too, and we're all suckers for that.
Yeah, corporatism, you know, just consumerism. Buy. Yeah,
That's a song, Backstreet Boys. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. What song is that? How lame. Damn.
That was like their song too, I think.
It was for
It's up there.
Oh, God damn. That's another thing. How tragic the music industry is now compared to what it used to be. It's just so shit now. It's like they're just selling sex all the time in every song.
They are for the most part, but that still sells with the younger audiences. So there you go.
Hey, I wanted to ask you guys a question, I guess, before we get too off. And I'm over here ripping these, so I am getting pretty stoned. Let's get goofy with it, I guess. But in theology, man, they always talk about how Adam and Eve were the first ones, right? And if you study that from different points of view, and there's different tablets and Torahs and all kinds of stuff, we can get into that probably on another show or something, if you really want to get into how many different religions, if you will, would talk about like basically the same thing that a lot of the Bible is saying today. And and I knew I was going to lose my train of thought.
You talking about the Bible? Adam and Eve?
Oh, Adam and Eve, yes. Okay, so in Adam and Eve, in the different ones, it talks about how they were able to procreate with Adam and Eve. And there are some people that say that there was basically like this experiment going on. And so they would try to get these humanoids to replicate, and some of them would. And the way that this was described is like if you were able to get a tiger and a lion to reproduce. And supposedly, I guess that is able to happen, but they won't have any offspring from that point on. So it's basically one generation and you're done. Almost like an autoflower, right? And so one generation is done, new genetics every single time. We can't really create bloodlines and all this kind of stuff. And so it was Adam and Eve were the first ones where they're able to create that. And that's where the rib from Adam and all that stuff came from. I wanted to know your guys' opinion on that if you study this, and what your thoughts on were Adam and Eve not necessarily the first human, but the first human beings from a humanoid that were able to procreate on their own, especially.
Ben, you wanna talk about this one? Is something that you're into?
That's fascinating for
Mm.
sure. There's also this, because it is a really interesting idea, and I think it calls back to our earlier exploration about the importance that certain demographics put on quote unquote bloodline, right? The idea that there is, first off, yeah, Brian's absolutely correct, everybody. Lion and tiger are biologically close enough that they can reproduce things like a liger, I think, is one of the larger possibilities. They are usually sterile. Um, so maybe in the story, I won't call it a myth just yet, but maybe in the story of Adam and Eve, we see this idea of the first successful reproductive pair. Because when you are creating new types of life, then as now, the first hurdle you have to get over is predictability of offspring and consistent nature of reproduction. So, for instance, I think a mule or a donkey, that could be another kind of hybridized offspring. And there are sterility problems there as well. We could also look to in the world of plants, we can look toward the apple. The apple is notoriously complicated to reproduce on a consistent basis because apples just mutate wildly, with various different iterations. And you guys are the plant experts, obviously. I am but a lowly fan of a good apple. So I admit I don't understand the entirety of the genetic expression involved. I will say this perspective of the biblical quote unquote first pair of humans is fascinating to give it a little bit of uh, scientific framing, because we do know that there were uh, there were many humans, primate, early human mixtapes that evolved, that existed, and that for one reason or another died out. This is a pretty fascinating thing. I think there's a good sci-fi story in here, if one of us wants to write it, but I haven't
Yeah,
quite
we've had a
thought
few of
about
them
it.
come up today, haven't we? Some good
Yeah.
sci-fi ideas.
I just haven't thought about it in that framework, and it's fascinating because it makes us think of environmental pressures and how many different I not to go into the weeds of nomenclature, but how many different individual organisms attempted to reproduce with something that was just close enough to them, but still different. Like how did that gamble out? Did we just roll the dice through accident or, again, predetermination, uh, to arrive at some, like, the primary differentiation between a mutation and an adaptation, uh, biologically, is that a mutation is a one-off. It may or may not be reproducible, transmissible to the offspring. And what we're talking about here, then, with the old story of Adam and Eve, is the idea that there were other things. Perhaps this is where Lilith enters the folklore, but this was the first time mutation or an improvement was copyable, was reproducible. That's fascinating. Wow. I'm not even high. That's amazing.
Yeah, man, interesting shit. So do the well, I suppose Judaism and Christianity have the same origin story like that, but does Islam have that as well? Like an Adam and Eve story? Does anybody know that?
Do you know the Old Testament and the Torah are almost word for word? It's the New
There's
Testament where things change.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that aspect alone is very intriguing, don't you think? That it's that important that two people that saw something happen one person went one way, one person went the other way, but they both agree, at least at the beginning of these wild things that we've been talking about, you know? So if we're talking about the Nephilim, then that is something that uh, the Jews and the Judeo-Christians should be speaking on. But nobody talks about that stuff except on the Mackey show.
That's the thing as well when it comes to religion. You know, it's all interlinked. So the notion of Jesus' mom and dad, you know, Jesus being born to a virgin mother. Buddha was born to a virgin mother. You know, the story of the walled garden in the Garden of Eden is the walled palace in the Buddhist story. You know, so and you can go on and on. These are just off the top of my head. You know, there's categories of fucking similarity through every single religion. You know, which seems to point that there's at the very minimum like an archetypal resonance between all of them, you know, relating to probably the psyche, human development, you know, and within those kind of contexts, you know.
Yeah, agreed. It's it's a fantastic point, these commonalities, because if you look at human civilization from the first universally agreed evidence that exists, right? Which I'm not saying is the actual first evidence, but from the as far as we know here in what we call 2024, human beings have always had far more in common with each other than they do opposed or differing. And I love this idea that there is some commonality to what we would call spiritual religious belief. And I picture a bunch of, you know, the grand poobahs of religion sitting around together, and they're saying, okay, we can agree on a couple of points. And someone says, go on. And then the first guy is like, there's a God. And everybody goes, yeah, 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 for sure. Right on. And they're like, and this God wants us to do good things. And they're like, yeah, yeah, for sure. Right on. And then somebody else says, also, we can only eat certain animals. And then they all say, yeah, yeah, sure, right on. And then another guy says, yeah, but which animals? And then the other guy says, I'm going to fucking kill you.
That's the thing that pops to my mind as well. It's like Chinese whispers. You know, it's like there was an original foundational story or foundational just a foundation of knowledge at the very beginning, and then you add time and the human tendency to elaborate, fabricate, and just fucking lie on top of that, and then you get to where we are now, where we're having a fucking conversation about different religions that probably have no connection but are connected, and it's, you know, it's mind-boggling, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's
we would have
fascinating
all
stuff.
been executed in times past for this
100%.
conversing. You know what
I
I
also
mean?
asked
Yeah.
kind
The
of leads
first 30 minutes they would have been gone,
Yeah,
man.
that could
just
still
the internet
come.
would just be shut down.
10 years in the future, you never know how things are going to go.
Thing is, when it comes to that though, the nature of these religious stories and what they're trying to teach us, it kind of leaves that thing open of like there was clearly something of importance that they felt that we should be aware of. You know, there was like an intention. You don't teach somebody something unless it's going to have practical utility. And I think that's where like the idea of it, you know, like extremist atheists that are like get rid of religion, it has no purpose in today's contemporary world, all these different things is, you know, it's I don't know, it just seems to be not a compliment to the future knowledge of humanity and stuff like that. I'm not saying that it's like obviously there's a fucking innumerable amounts of very obvious things in all religious texts which are like, wow, fucking hell, that shouldn't even be considered, you know. But there's huge amounts of wisdom and knowledge and you know and values of integrity and that kind of thing also interwoven into these stories, and they seem to be related to the psyche and development and all these different things, human experience. You know, it's almost uncanny some of the stories that they're talking about back then. It's talking about like the social mechanics of today, and I think that's what a lot of the time religion, when they're talking about the interactions of who to be as a person, it's largely a social mechanism for optimization, really.
Agreed. I mean, I would, in that spirit, I would think about how every provable culture has a boogeyman story of some sort or another. Don't go out into the wild because this thing will find you and kill you. Be a good kid. And the specifics of that thing out in the woods or in the bounds of the waste or whatever, those parts may be made up, but there is again an efficacy. Like you said, there's a practical application because the telling of that story, usually targeted at children, will keep them out of the woods. And it may not be a made up monster that gets them, but it could be any number of other terrible possibilities. So there is a reason that people tell these stories. And what I find fascinating is if we look deep enough, we will more than often find some grain of truth behind a lot of what we call myths in the modern day. Like it's provable a flood absolutely rocked the Middle East, right? Not once, but several times. And we know that it was a big friggin' deal to the people who survived that flood or those floods because they wrote some of the oldest existing stories entirely about how you have to watch out for floods.
Yeah. That's fascinating shit as well. Isn't it? 'Cause that's in the Dead Sea Scrolls and all of that. Them stories go back, like the earliest religions have the flood story. It's common in lots of the big religions, isn't it?
Yeah, it's common
Well,
around the world too, though.
through the Nephilim, supposedly that is why the creator, God, was upset, is the DNA was changed. It was manipulated. And so the flood was sent to eradicate the Nephilim hybrid children. And if you talk about that in a church setting, I promise you they will pick you up probably by the parishioners and kick your ass out of there.
That's cool. I do pretty well in a crowd surfing situation.
When you use the stuff and I don't know if you guys have ever been to like a Southern Baptist, like real, like hardcore Southern Baptist, where everyone dresses up and there's marble everywhere, and it's everything but being proactive and helping others. It's just about making the church the fanciest one in town, making sure Mr. Preacher Man drives a nice car and has a beautiful suit and all that kind of stuff.
You mean the Southern Baptist Church that if the pastor walks towards you after the service, you kind of want to leave because he wants something? That's the one I know about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a weird way it's a very crooked way to kind of like force people to give you money. They walk around and pass out the offering plates.
Peer pressure. You have to do it in front of everybody.
I think as well sometimes that situation...
Money is the root of all evil, and I will take upon myself your burden. Please pass the plate.
Amen, brother.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's like those kind of financial things, though. These are the extreme elements which make atheists say that religion's bullshit, and it's frustrating because these are not accurate representations of what the nature of what religion or spiritual thought incorporates. It's, as Brian was saying, it's not about material aestheticism. It's about the development of the psyche and the individual as a person, and as a complement to the society they live in. And I think this is one of the things that's so frustrating about, because inevitably in human society, we always have we have a spectrum which involves fucking everything. So it's really difficult to try and narrow down truth. And it just seems to be that the best way to try and articulate what truth is based in an action of integrity. And that's where like you can build up towards truth from that in itself.
Yeah, religion's a strange one, man. I've been an atheist my whole life, really. Being raised in the UK, you get kind of raised in like a Protestant Christian kind of setting. It's just part of being at primary school and things like that. I've never had too much religion in my life or anything like that. And it's not like through lack of trying. I've looked, I've searched, I've done a lot of research on religions. It's not like I wouldn't want a God in my life or something like that. I just haven't been convinced of it yet.
What's quite funny, Marky, is the fact that it's like earlier on in the podcast you're saying about how you believe in the simulation theory, and it's like I'm aware that obviously there's much more detail to simulation theory, but in a very real sense, that's still a creationist theory, really.
Yeah, in some way I can see what you're saying, but it's not the creation of the original universe. The original universe is just a random process from what we know so far. It comes down to circular logic for me, that point where the universe must have a creator because everything has a creator, and it's like, okay, what created the creator? It's always been. It's like, but how can an omnipotent being that knows everything and create this kind of thing just come out of nowhere? But a random process of energy, just that couldn't happen. Yeah.
What's that old joke? It's turtles all the way down.
That's right. Yeah, it's turtles all the way down.
This this is a fascinating, Connor, you nailed something awesome there. The idea of something being sort of a neo-creationist theory by another name.
Mm.
I do have to say it is absolutely, to me, this may be a hot take, but religion is sort of a human created technology, right? Or a way of reckoning with the environment in which humans exist.
Mhm.
I am obviously not I'm not qualified to make a papal statement. Very few people are, but I can say that if it is helping people,
Mm.
if it is um, if it is creating a series of actions that leads them to do things that we would universally agree are good and right, then that's cool. And dare I say, go with God. I also think we're getting really close to talking about Gnosticism at that point, right?
Mhm.
Which I guess is just another earlier version of simulation theory, and to this I would love to hear from our resident theologian, uh, Brian. How does Gnosticism as a concept square with this idea of Nephilim and this idea of an ultimate truth, if such exist?
When you're saying Gnosticism, like Rosicrucianism type stuff,
Yeah.
yeah. So from that, man, that's kind of where like the lore of like the Knights Templar and all that came from, right? And supposedly there was just a few members in there. Um, they found something. Some people believe it was the Ark of the Covenant. Some people believe it was like a chalice of Christ. Some have said that it's gold and all this stuff. Some people have said that it was made of wood. Um, it's a very offshoot, I guess, of like normal Judeo-Christianity. And I would say that it's deeper into a lot of this stuff because there's such things like the Rosalind Chapel, which is big in Rosicrucianism. A lot of these chapels around and high-end churches and um, castles and that type of thing, very predominant things are on this fault line. And that's where a lot of the supposedly where they figured this out was from like Gnostic beliefs and Rosicrucian beliefs of that there's a bloodline of Christ. There was an early book is called damn, Holy Blood, Holy Grail, I think. And it's one of the first ones to talk about a lot of the stuff that maybe there was something to this. And to a lot of people, man, what I'm saying right now is complete blasphemy if Christ had a child. But the Gnostics, I guess, had more of a belief system that existed. And um, I would say that I'm not a fully, the Gnostic aspect is very hard to understand. It's also seems to be really rooted in like, you got to understand a lot of like symbolism and kind of understand what 33-degree Masons and stuff would understand to, I guess, try to comprehend alchemy and supposed ways to turn lead into gold. And some people claim that that is real, and maybe that is what the Knights Templar from Gnostic